Show of hands, how many of us uh, in this room are either immigrants or have an immigrant background, meaning one of your parents? Nice big high hands. I mean, I'm guessing it's because we're in an international house space, but it really drives my point that I'm gonna make. Um, we have a culture now started off as a long-winded sort of diary reflection of my own journey in Sweden, uh, and some research that I did that really helped me understand what I was going through, and then I just started putting it together as a book, and then this gave me the opportunity to test it and see if it's good. So thank you. Um, the Swedish experience, Sweden, a country that works, right? That's why many of us come here. It's a it's first world in every possible way. It provides a high quality of life. Did you know that over 40% of households in Sweden are single person households? I'm not going to ask you to put up your hand if you live alone. A study from Malmö University uh, revealed that immigrants reported having a feeling of great loneliness, and it's difficult to enter society, right? According to the Swedish National Board, as reported by SVT News, between 2018 and 2020, over 400 people in Sweden died alone in their homes, undiscovered for at least 30 days, and over 100 undiscovered for 3 months, and at least 10 laid in their homes dead alone for a year. The same study in Malmö University used mobility tracking on immigrants to understand how they move through society. And what they saw is that foreign-born individuals, even when they're in public, are typically much more socially segregated in their daily routines than Swedes. So people spend a lot of time alone. High quality of life. A country that works. Now, of course, I love Sweden. Don't get me wrong, it is my home. My daughter is born here. She goes to school here. I'm proud of the education. I'm proud of my job. I love my job at Volvo. 20% of people living in Sweden are foreign born. An additional 5% of them have a foreign background. It's a significant number of people that we're talking about. Let's talk about inside the minds of those people. A study developed in Purdue University by Kipling Williams was called Cyberball. You might have heard of it. Cyberball was a study that was trying to determine what are the impacts on the human brain on the feeling of being left out. So they put one human in a room, well, on a game, and told that human that they were playing cyberball against two other humans. What the human didn't know is that it wasn't two other humans, it was robots controlled by scientists. So the game proceeded with the ball being passed between robot, human, back to robot, back to human, back to robot, back to the other robot, back to the other robot, back to the other robot. And they studied the humans under fMRI scanners and EEG scanners and observed the brain activity that was taking place while that human was not involved in the game that they wanted to play. The studies found that the same regions of the brain that processed pain were processing the feeling of being left out. Essentially, realizing and publishing that social exclusion hurts just as bad as physical pain. People sensitive to rejection, when excluded via cyberball, were found to be more inclined to identify with extremist groups, blurring the line between social pain and ideological recruitment. Kipling Williams. Now, it's not just, sound like ChatGPT when I say that. It's not just this, it's that. It's not just biological, it's not just neurological, it's physiological and biological entirely, and social. Because for early humans, isolation essentially meant death. It meant the inability to work together, to be protected, to be fed. Homo sapiens survived because of our ability to collaborate in groups. When we're excluded, the pain that flares up in our brain is our survival instinct screaming for our ancient wiring, screaming from our ancient wiring, reminding us that a most basic human need is to be together. You'll see where I'm going with this. Robin Dunbar, who we'll talk about. Have you ever heard of the Dunbar number? Nice. We'll talk about it. Robin Dunbar said that the single best predictor of your mental health and well-being, your physical health and well-being, even how long you survive into the future from today, is predicted by the number and quality of close friends you have. This is getting a bit scary or concerning, isn't it? Robin Dunbar is a biological anthropologist and evolutionary psychologist with Oxford University, and he created the Dunbar number. We'll get back to that. The invisible hand. Culture. The Christmas Yule board. Hopefully we're all familiar with the Christmas Yule board, long summer holidays, what it feels like to stand in the sun in May. The high trust systems. How exactly, and if you get to open a bank account, book a doctor's appointment, or register for a gym class. It's the way we do things around here. It's what culture is. That's what Swedish culture is. Don't draw too much attention to yourself. Don't brag. Jantelager. Decisions take time. Consensus matters. Culture tells us what is okay to do and what is not okay to do. Culture tells us who gets in and who doesn't, who feels left out. Culture is the daily choreography of how we fit together, because we're all negotiating and navigating this space. But what happens when you don't know the rules? I'm sure most of us knows what happens when you don't know the rules. Loneliness. Well, we already established that it physically hurts. Baboons. Fun fact. The endocrine system, and I'll tell you in the next slide, I can't remember the acronym, another system, is identical in baboons as it is to humans. So in as much as humans are apes, we can study the biology of baboons to understand their reaction to stress and their hormonal response, because it's identical in humans. Their social behavior is also quite similar to ours. The hierarchical society of baboons mirrors our own as it relates to status, alliances, exclusion, and belonging, and the biological stress responses they exhibit are just like ours. Robert Sapolsky, Stanford University. His lectures are on YouTube. Really, 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 really interesting guy. Studied baboons for this reason because he's a neuroendocrinologist. And what he found is that baboons at the bottom of the social ladder, people, baboons, baboons defined by chronic exclusion, rejection, and loneliness, showed consistently elevated levels of cortisol. That's a stress hormone compared to their more socially integrated peers. Sapolsky showed that consistent prolonged stress can lead to suppressed immune function, elevated blood pressure, and increased inflammation, which, by the way, was my first symptom of cancer. Over time, this wear and tear on the body, which scientists call the allostatic load, can be devastating. Heart disease, memory loss, gut issues, weakened immune system, death. When stress is social as compared to having a lion chase you, that rooted isolation and lack of belonging is inside of us. It's insidious. It's not something that we can actually run away from. And so it just slowly, steadily builds inside of you. Bubbles. It's called the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis. Forgive me for not being. Now, this is cool. Cultural capital was theorized by Pierre Bourdieu, a French academic, essentially saying that cultural capital, or our ability to maneuver or negotiate within cultures, um, thrives on four types of capital. Economic capital. In human, it's money, property, assets that can be exchanged for security, comfort, and opportunities. In baboons, it's access to food, safe resting spots, mates. Symbolic capital. Baboons, status, charisma, fighting skills, maternal reputation. In humans, it's prestige, legitimacy, academic and professional titles. Social capital. In baboons, it's grooming partnerships and alliances that reduce harassment. In humans, social capital is networks, alliances, friendships, family ties, family ties that provide support. And cultural capital. In baboons, it's knowing who is dominant and who to play with and who not to play with. In humans, it's language, education, knowledge, know-how, directions. So what we're playing with is a sort of Wi-Fi signal of capital in different spaces. We ask ourselves, or we can ask ourselves, what is our degree of social capital as it relates, of cultural capital, capital in general, as it relates to one of these four um, types of capital. He said that the habitus in the middle is how you play the game. It's how you negotiate yourself and your movement inside of any one of these spaces. So you could build your own capital network and think about all of the factors that contribute to your social capital or your symbolic capital and build capital over time. But what happens if that capital is low? From a social perspective, baboons don't have grooming partners. They will be harassed. They will be beaten. They will have elevated cortisol and they will have poor health. Humans, if we have low social capital, We're lonely, we're excluded, symptoms of depression, anxiety, suicidality. Show of hands, everybody knows what SSRI means. Anybody who knows what SSRI means? Too many. Um, Cultural capital. SSRI is an antidepressant. Cultural capital. The baboons, if they have low cultural capital, they misread troop signals. They get into fights, they're rejected, they're isolated. If we have low cultural capital, we're misfits. For example, an immigrant in an elite setting who doesn't know how to move or read the room, we get imposter syndrome. We're alienated. If we have low economic capital, we're poor. Chronic stress, insecurity, dysregulation. Economic capital for baboons means low rank, little food, no access to mates. And symbolic capital for baboons means there's no prestige, there's no stability in your troop. And for humans, status anxiety, the fear of losing faith, of you losing face, the fear of humiliation, embarrassment. So these are real things that many people are negotiating with on a daily basis. Robert Sapolsky said famously, "You don't have to be chased by a lion to be dying of stress. All it takes is a bad marriage, a job you hate, a life without people who really see you." So the point is made. This is serious. So, on that note, why is it so hard? Why is it so hard to break into Swedish society? Here's Robert Dunbar again. So, Oxford scholar Robert Dunbar said that there is a limit to the number of social bonds that our brains can process. He called it the Dunbar number. It's 5. It's more than one number. Essentially, your brain is able to, according to this theory, your brain is able to process and manage 5 intimate friends. You spend 100 hours per month with your 5 intimate friends. Those are, and by intimate, those are the people whose shoulders you can cry on. Those are the people who will drop everything to come see you. Usually it's family, spouse, um, very, very close, lifelong friends. In Sweden, we find that those friends we meet in childhood, I say we, but Swedes meet in childhood. Sometimes it's university, sometimes it's work, not usually. Uh, but it's preserved with consistency, of course, romantic partners. And they really spend daily life together. Long walks in the forest, dinners at home, traveling together at summer houses, um, deep conversations. I am, if you've ever been invited by a Swede to take a walk in the forest, the- I realized recently the magnitude of that and how important that is to Swedish society. 15 close friends where you spend 30 to 50 hours per month with them. Those are childhood friends who became a bit more personal, or colleagues who became a bit more personal, siblings, maybe a neighbor. Usually you meet these people also in school, maintained through planned meetups, not spontaneous drop-ins. No. Structured activities, group dinners, birthday celebrations, ski trips. Anyone in Sweden for less than 6 months? Um, Organized social activities. First rule, 50 good friends, former classmates, sports club members, other parents at daycare, usually tied to a life phase. Um, And you find that people here, or people in general, um, they move up in the same life phases. So you see people again and again. They meet occasionally for fika and dinner invitations, networking at work, reconnecting at big events like weddings, and then 150 meaningful contacts as opposed. And then there's one more layer. It's sort of like everyone else, those faces you know, but the meaningful contacts are colleagues, neighbors, distant relatives, people you see at work, people you see around. Um, you see them in institutions, workplaces, schools, sports clubs, housing associations. Um, you talk to them at coffee, share them. You greet neighbors, casual chats, preschool pickups, maybe even a Christmas card if you're so inclined, uh, and social media. So this is our, according to Dunbar, our ability as humans to navigate our social space. But this is allowing us to appreciate what's happening in Sweden, and one of the reasons why I think it's kind of hard to break in. Now, if any of you have followed me on LinkedIn, you know that I believe in storytelling. Um, and this is why storytelling is our way in. And storytelling is possible through laughter, singing, dancing, eating together. It's not necessarily the stories that are told from speeches or from books. You can tell a story by inviting someone to eat your food. You can tell a story by dancing. There are many ways to tell stories, and storytelling has always connected humans. So essentially, the call here is for immigrants to think about creating shared experiences with Swedes, allowing your stories to be told through food, eating together. Invite Swedes to try your cultural food. Um, Make sure it's small and structured. Dinner party. Ask them to bring food as well. Don't make it huge. Um, but also at the same time, join them for a crayfish party and immerse yourself in the stories that food is able to tell you. Actual stories. Sharing personal stories about your migration and family and traditions. And I'll tell you, I didn't realize how powerful this was until I just started sharing my stories and how many messages I got from Swedes and immigrants alike who felt seen, who felt like they're a bit closer to me. It's real. Um, Swedes value reflective, low drama storytelling. Um, Remember not boasting. Okay, maybe laughter in itself is a story. Create humor, improv theater. I often say the single most beneficial thing I did within the first 3 months of moving to Sweden was joining an acting class. Gothenburg English Studio Theater in Majorna. Uh, I met my closest friends there, and that has stayed with me. It's created opportunities. It's um, actual jobs, networks, and it's not just the fact that it was an organized activity, but it was an organized activity that allowed us to lose ourselves a little bit. That's what theater does. You laugh, you play, and those moments of letting your guard down, those moments of vulnerability, allow your soul to speak. Uh, Singing and music, karaoke. Listen, I think karaoke is a universal language. I am I think I made a reputation at what job I had. I was working at an agency, OTW, and we used to do karaoke nights. And I had one song. It was "Lose Yourself" by Eminem. Listen, karaoke. People started to know me because of the vulnerability I displayed in singing "Lose Yourself." But it makes such a big difference. It's such a shortcut to move from the outer circles to the inner circles. Dancing and movement. We all love to dance. We all love to move. African dance, yoga, um, bridge circles, bridges circles. What is that? Essentially, that structured format. Really? Dance. Okay, 10. That structured format um, allows us to lose ourselves in a safe space together. It allows us to move away from this need to keep our eyes down and our headphones on. Why should Swedes care? What's in it for Swedes? Well, come on. Y'all are lonely. Well, we're not the only ones. And I mean, in fact, Swedes are among the loneliest people in Europe, statistically speaking. And so welcoming immigrants allows you to expand your social circle, expand your palette, expand your sense of humor, your music, your companionship. But then let's get to the money. We all know. We all preach it. Diversity breeds innovation. Um, Diverse teams are proven over and over and over again to be more creative and better and faster at solving problems than homogeneous teams. Diversity is a competitive advantage. Immigrants also expand Swedes into new markets. A strong immigrant in an organization brings in the strength of their history. Critical labor shortages. There are many industries in Sweden that are facing critical labor shortages, including and especially healthcare. And immigrants have already begun to fill up the gaps in healthcare workers. And so this idea of waiting times is actually being solved by immigrant workers as opposed to taking up the queue. Securing the welfare state. Sweden, a place that works. But by 2050, 1 in 4 Swedes will be 65 and over. Without immigration, without young people moving into Sweden, we will have more old people who are dependent on the system than people who are able to pay taxes to support the system. So without this immigrant movement, taxes will raise. Immigrants are paying taxes. I guarantee. Uh, and of course, economic growth through entrepreneurship. Fun fact in Stockholm, which is a global tech hub, 1 in 4 people, 1 in 4 entrepreneurs are immigrants. Almost done. So immigrants are in fact the antidote. I came up with a little future projection. In 2025, right now, about 1 in 4 Swedes has a foreign background. Not in this rubric, like public discourse is polarized. Some people like immigration, some people are really against it. It's very polarized. However, falafels, kebabs, pizza, sushi, Thai food are the standard food. In Sweden, the standard fast food, it's all immigrant food. What then is Swedishness? Right now in 2025, Swedishness means having 2 Swedish grandparents, and by Swedish, I mean white. In 2035, now this is a projection from the Sweden Statistics Board. In 2035, the foreign-born population will rise to 25 to 27%, and the migration-oriented background people will be up to 35%. Swedishness will be a bit different. I continue to think about the fact that my daughter, who has a Caribbean background, or a father who's Caribbean, my daughter who's never been to Trinidad and was born in Sweden, is not Swedish. I just find it a bit strange, personally. But it's a debate, and the debate will continue into 2035. Secularism will continue to be dominant, but the recognition and respect for other religions will begin to grow. 2050, representation from immigrants in politics, business, and cultural situations. We will see more immigrant CEOs, more immigrant politicians. Sweden will be known as one of the most diverse societies in Europe. Traditions like Midsummer, Lucia remain, but I won't be the only person celebrating Diwali in October and Ramadan. We will all be recognizing it. Foreign-born population could reach 30+% with nearly 40% having a migration background. 30+%, so it's steadily raising. A majority of urban school children would have a foreign-born parent. Almost done, I swear, 2 minutes. Why do I care? Why do I think this matters? What is this? Why am I inserting myself aside from the fact that I am an immigrant? I'm from here, Trinidad and Tobago. 5,000 miles, 13 hours flying, 14,000 crowds. Trinidad and Tobago, my Caribbean island home. In the 1840s to 1920, after slavery was abolished, there were African settlers in Trinidad. Indians were invited for indentureship. Europeans, Chinese, and Syrians also came and set up business. We all lived sharp divisions, separate villages, separate religions, separate food cultures, suspicion, competition, in the same country, but separate. 1840 to 1920. By the early mid-1900s, culture started mixing in schools. We developed this word called Dogla, which in Trinidad is known as the beautiful mix of African and Indian people. Carnival becomes a national symbol of mixed culture. And in Carnival, we love to say, all are we is one, which means we're all one people. Indian festivals become Trinidad festivals. Muslim festivals become Trinidad festivals. Christian festivals are Trinidad festivals. To be a Trinidadian means to celebrate Christmas, Diwali, Ramadan, Lent, and they're all respected in the same way. We dress up in our kurta, we dress up in our saris, we dress up in our African wear, we dress up in everything for everything all the time. We just are a mixed culture. Normalized diversity, but in the 90s it was still fragile. By the late 2000s, diversity became our source of pride. Carnival has begun to move around. For those of you who've been to Amsterdam Carnival, Notting Hill Carnival, Swiss, all of the carnivals came from Trinidad. The Diwali Nagar is one of the most beautiful places or beautiful melting pots that I've ever been to, where you can learn about spirituality, period. Eid is a national holiday. Identity shift from African or Indian to Trinidadian. Diversity is the brand of Trinidad and Tobago. So what's the difference? After all, told you all alone that we're all just papoose. Thank you.